resources, and my fellow mates. Today I'm standing here with a topic, autonomy as a pathway to peace, assessing the impact of the sixth schedule on conflict resolution in Manipur. This paper is a sincere attempt to explore how autonomy can address ethnic conflicts and promote peace in Manipur. It focuses on the potential of sixth schedule of the Indian Constitution to empower tribal governance in Manipur's hill districts, which cover 90% of the state area. The paper traces the evolution of autonomy globally and Manipur's historical context, highlighting the 1971 Act's shortcomings, such as its lack of judicial and legislative powers and frequent suspensions. The presentation advocates for transparent dialogue and inclusive policies to achieve lasting peace in Manipur. This paper still requires refinement and finishing touch for formal publication. So let me start my paper presentation with two heart-provoking quotations from two eminent personalities. The greatest thing in the world is to know how to belong to oneself, quoted by Michael D. Montaigne. Self-government is a right, a thing normal to be doled out to us or withheld from us by another people than the right to life itself, quoted by Woodrow Wilson. Now, let's try to dig deeper. Let's try to understand the definitions of autonomy. The term autonomy is derived from Greek words auto, meaning self, and nomos, meaning law or rule. Thus, it basically means to make one's own laws, or self-rule, or self-government. Autonomy is a means for division of powers in order to preserve the unity of a state while respecting the diversity of its population. In autonomy, special emphasis is given to its potential to address the aspirations of minorities or indigenous populations and people striving for self-determination. It is increasingly suggested as a method of resolving certain conflicts, and it is not uncommon for regions to demand it. Now let's talk about autonomy from global perspective. Historically, autonomy was viewed with suspicion, often associated with secessionist movements. Outside the current context, self-determination discourse was viewed with great suspicion by governments, seeing it as a first step onto the slippery slope that inevitably leads towards irregularities or secessionist claims. Thus, autonomy was widely regarded as a somehow dangerous concept that a state would only employ it at its own peril. But there is a paradigm shift after the end of the Cold War. It was no longer taken to be a step towards independence. Rather, it was seen to be in its 180-degree reversal of the previous position. It was now considered a possible tool in accommodating separatist movements without endangering the continued territorial integrity of an existing state. Clear examples could be found in the form of 1990 Copenhagen document. Experience also has proven that frequently communities in search of greater autonomy are those who need economic assistance the most. Any solution of a new status for a community ought to include the idea of respect for multiple identities accepted throughout the region. This appreciation of diversity allows for increasing flexibility in defining the relationship between geographical living space and local, state, and regional hierarchies. Once multiple identities are accepted, the influence of militant nationalism may wane and tolerance for other identities will increase. As we have seen in successful cases of self-governance, A government can hold several identities. For example, to be proud to be a Naga, as well as a proud Manipuri, and as well as a proud Indian. Now let's try to look into historical context of autonomy in Manipur. It could be discussed in three categories: pre-colonial days. First, tribal villages in pre-British period were mini-republics independent of outside influence. It is clear that the Meitei Kingdom had adopted more or less a policy of non-interference in the internal affairs of the tribes, though the exact nature of the relationship between the Meitei Kingdom and the tribe villages is lost in obscurity. Now, colonial era. When the British took over the hill areas in 1891, they did not bring any marked changes in the hill administration. In fact, during the period of the direct British management of Manipur, starting from 1891 to 1906, the administrations of the hill tribes was looked after by political Azeng with the help of the Lambus. Three, post-colonial and India independent era. After the collapse of the British Paramountcy in August 1947, the Manipur State Constitution Act 1947 and the Manipur Hills People Regulations were promulgated by the then Maharaja Bhojchandra Singh. These two laws introduced regular administrations in the hills. In fact, the Manipur Hill People's Regulation 1947 was a well-formulated local government system for the hill areas. After the merger of Manipur on 15 August 1949, the main instruments of administration in the hill areas are the following laws. Number one, the Manipur Hill Areas Village Authority Act 1956. Number two, Manipur Hill Areas District Council Act 1971. Now let's look into the autonomous district councils in the hill districts of Manipur. We all are aware of the fact that the hill districts covered 90% of the Manipur geographical area, but less than 40% of its population. And these hill areas have been epicenters of political contestations driven by demands for greater autonomy to preserve their cultural identities, address economic disparities, and enhance local governance, which has its roots from the colonial eras and beyond. In many occasions, the demand for autonomy became a point of conflict between the dominant Meitei community and the tribal populace in the hill districts. Tribal lands of Manipur are left out unspecified and not covered by the 5th and the 6th schedules of the Constitution. The Constitution needs to answer such questions, as this is a serious gap in the provisions of the Constitution or in its implementation. This fateful omission by India's constitutional fathers continue to Manipur hill areas till today. As I speak about this, we can also look into some of the defects of Manipur hill areas Autonomous District Council Act 1971.
You have 2 more minutes.
Number one, back nature of relationship of district council and the government, leading to confusion and misunderstanding, limiting the independence of the councils. The history of autonomous district councils in Manipur is a story full of suspense since its inception. The DC elections of Manipur Hills were suspended for a stretch of almost 20 years, 1991 to 2009. It was again suspended after it ran for 2 more terms from 2010 to 2020. Presently, the DC election has been kept at limbo. So amendments were also made in several attempts in 1975, 2000, 2006, 2008, and even 2001, but with no impact. Autonomy demands, we have seen 3 forms of demands. Number one is like Greater Nagalim, Zalengam, and demand for 6 Shadow. For Zalengam or Great Nagalim, I would leave that for those people who are demanding it. But I would rather speak focusing on demand for the 6 Shadows, because I consider that to be the golden mean, the middle line between the extremities. So on the other hand, there is a very radical approach of some people not in position to say yes to any demands of such sort. So demand for 6 schedules had been started since its inception of the 1971 Manipur Hill Areas Autonomous District Council Act. Some of the recommendations for 6 schedules can be seen in form of 1971. In 1990 also we could see
Can you wind up from the logo?
yes ma'am, to push for it. In its resolution of 14/8/2003, HSG also expresses concern for extension of 6 ADC. So, and there are still lots to say about it. In conclusion, the aspiration of the Hill peoples in regard to demand for its extension to 6 Hedel is too great an importance to be omitted or kept limbo for long. So like when I say about this, I would like to point out some of the few points to ponder as my recommendation. Number 1, it is certainly possible that a government's emphasis on territorial integrity is merely a smokescreen to cover up its unwillingness to share political power. Recognition of the right to autonomy is essential to ensure that the principles of participation, self-determination, and tolerance are allowed to flourish. At the same time, majority democratic rule also is a fundamental principle. Apart from that, there are still lots of points that I put up here, but to save the time, I will just say much on this. And at the last, the Union government and the Manipur government should sleep no more in their bed of complacency and must engage in transparent and inclusive dialogue to deliver a desirable autonomy in form of well-regulated autonomous district councils under the 6 schedules. The act of fostering an atmosphere of conciliations and goodwill, it will end the unending cycle of conflicts, ensuring Manipur to wear the new grand look, making its name as the Switzerland of the East, popularized by Lord Irwin, a former Viceroy of India, uniting its diverse communities under a shared vision of peace and prosperity. Let me conclude my presentation by saying Manipur's path to peace lies in inclusive autonomy. Thank you.